Hello, I'm Ruth Wenger, English specialist. I want to help you learn how to answer a literature question. So I'm working on Romeo and Juliet, the prologue, so if you can get that text ready. The question that we're going to look at is, how does Shakespeare use the prologue to add to the drama within the play? Now, to answer that question, we must be engaging with the text and analysing wherever possible the language, the structure and form in this extract that we're given. In your exam, of course, you'll be able to talk about other moments in the play, but for now, just to get into this routine of going to the text for your evidence to back up your point and prove that what you're saying is correct, let's just focus on the prologue. So make sure you understand what's happening in this. I'm not going to give you a translation, you can find that out yourself online. I will tell you that Shakespeare is giving us an overview at this moment of the entire play. He tells us the plot. He explains there's these two warring families and that these two warring families both had children. These children met, fell in love and took their own lives. And it was their death that brought about the end of the conflict. So effectively he uses this prologue to give us the entire story, the entire plot of Romeo and Juliet. If that was a movie trailer, you probably wouldn't bother watching the movie. So why has Shakespeare done that? The prologue comes before Act 1, Scene 1. At the end of the prologue it says Act 1, Scene 1. So this prologue is structured to happen before the play starts. Before the play starts, we find out the entire plot. By doing this, Shakespeare's created dramatic irony. Dramatic irony is when the audience or the reader knows more than the characters. So when Romeo and Juliet first meet and they're happy and they're in love, we can enjoy that happiness and the romance with them, but it's tinged with sadness and tension for us because we know the outcome is tragedy. We know the outcome is death. We know they can't be together. So Shakespeare's made us so involved in their emotional journey. What do we have to say about form? Well, what form is here? If we look at it, it's a sonnet. Shakespeare uses 3 sonnets throughout Romeo and Juliet. Once where they first meet, and then the other 2 occasions is the prologue. A sonnet is a poetic form and it follows certain rules. It's always made up of 14 lines, and if you read this, it's 14 lines. It has a particular rhyme scheme that it follows. So when you want to look at a rhyme scheme, look at the end of the line. So dignity rhymes with mutiny, seen, unclean, foes, throws, life, strife. So you'll see the first and the third line rhyme and the second and the fourth. We work out the rhyme pattern using the alphabet. So when 2 words rhyme, they have the same letter. So the rhyme scheme for a sonnet becomes A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, and then ends with a rhyming couplet. So that becomes GG. The rhyming couplet where you have 2 rhymes directly next to each other. So no longer the first and the third line, but now next to each other. So we have attend and mend. That's how a sonnet ends, with that rhyme scheme. The other thing we know about a sonnet is that it has iambic pentameter. The iambic pentameter creates the rhythm. An iamb is a rhythm where you have an unstressed word followed by a stressed word. I don't mean stressed as in anxious, I mean you put emphasis on. So it's unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed. So, to house holds both alike in dignity. So you'll see there's 10 syllables in that. In fair Verona where we lay our scene. 10 syllables, but made up of 5 of these rhythms. Ba-boom. Almost a rhythm like a heartbeat. Keeps the flow of the language going. Pent means 5, meter means the poetic line. So we have 5 of this rhythm, unstressed, stressed rhythm per line. That runs throughout the whole thing, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. So this is following the expected rhythm of a sonnet. So when we're analysing the text, we can say the form is a sonnet form. We know sonnets are often, especially with Shakespeare, connected to love. He wrote hundreds of them. Check them out. They all follow this format and they're all about love. But if we look at this, if we look at the language now of this particular sonnet, it isn't a language of love anymore. Look at the words. We've got grudge. We've got mutiny, blood, unclean. We have fatal, foes means enemies. Death. Misadventure, things going wrong, downfall, death-marked love. So that's almost an oxymoron, isn't it? The opposites. You expect love to be positive, but this love is stained by death. Look at that language. You analyse that juxtaposition, that contrast between the love that's tainted by death. So zoom in on these words. If there's any language devices, pick them out. But overall, we can say this sonnet that we expect to be filled with the language of love is filled with the language of conflict and hate and destruction. Why? How is that helping add drama? Well, it's perfect because it sets up all the main themes of Romeo and Juliet. Romeo and Juliet is a love story, yes. But it isn't a case of boy meets girl, they live happily ever after. That would be the end of the story. This is boy meets girl who are not allowed to be together. This is boy meets girl who are in an environment of hate and conflict and suffering. And ultimately, that conflict and suffering and hate destroys the beauty that was their love. So it's this push and pull, this tension between the love and the hate, which is where the drama lies. And Shakespeare's beautifully set that up for us already in the prologue. Through the use of the sonnet form, embedded with this language of hate and conflict, he shows this push and pull of what's going to be happening in this play so beautifully. You can add context. You should add context into your answers, but it shouldn't dominate the paragraph. You don't get enough marks for context. You get marks for this, analysing language, structure and form. So the context is just it's in addition, it's to support your argument. I think it is worth mentioning that the prologue could also have been used to kind of prime his audience, because theatre in Shakespeare's day was very different to today. Today, I think we get dressed up, we sit politely and quietly, and we listen attentively, even if we're bored, we clap in the right places. Shakespeare's audience did not do that. They were there for the social, more than the play. They would be selling things to each other, they might be fighting and catching up with their friends, maybe having a drink. So Shakespeare had to work really hard when he wrote these plays to make sure he was going to catch their attention. So here in the prologue, he says there's fighting, there's love, there's death, there's hatred. So he tries to engage their interest straight away so that he can hold their attention. It also helps that he's given the plot away, because if someone gets distracted, at least when they come back, they can kind of keep up with the story. So he could throw those elements of context in, but that's not where the real marks are. The real marks are engaging with that text. I hope that helps. If you have any questions, do get in touch and I'll do my best to answer it. Thanks for listening. Have a good day.